Blood and Salt by Liggett. Read to you by me. Chapter 8. Wrecked. You have reached your final destination. The voice blared over the GPS, startling us both. We'd been on desolate back roads for so long, I think we'd forgotten what technology sounded like. We moved forward another 10 feet, then the GPS signal died. It wasn't a gentle wane. It was abrupt, like we'd just fallen off the face of the earth. No, no way, Rhys said, squeezing his phone like he was strangling it. This is a joke. He squinted through the bug-smeared windshield. I pulled over a makeshift lot full of rusted-out cars. Beyond that stretched nothing but corn. Miles and miles of corn. Rhys flung his phone at the dash. I told you we wouldn't be able to find it. This has to be it, I said as I scanned the area. Obviously, it hadn't rained in some time, giving the landscape a muted palette, much softer than I expected. There was something so familiar about the surroundings that I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe something from a dream, or a Wyeth painting? I need to use the restroom, I said. Be my guest. I glanced over at the towering stalk as I picked up his phone and tried to find a signal. No, I mean really use the restroom. I dug out some paper napkins from the discarded back in the back seat and handed them to him. He eyed me skeptically. Are you serious? Everybody poops, Rhys. There's even a book about it. Just don't talk about it, he hissed, as he took the napkins and got out of the car, slamming the door behind him. He walked off toward the corn, shoulders hunched, looking completely mortified. I cut off the engine and found myself staring at the hundreds of abandoned cars. Every decade was represented. It seemed odd to have a car graveyard in the middle of nowhere, but I guess it was as good a place as any. I rummaged through the center console hoping to find gum or a breath mint. My mouth felt like the inside of a dumpster fire. Tic-tacs. Score. I popped a couple and looked through the rest of the contents. A pair of sunglasses and a tin of lip balm. I thought I was low maintenance. I dabbed the balm on my lips and glanced at myself in the rearview mirror to see if it made any improvement. But all I found were dark blue irises lined with thick black rings, like Katya's, like shackles. I put on my mother's sunglasses. They looked glamorous on her, but they made me look like a bug. We'd been driving for nearly 20 hours, and my body felt welded to the seat. I was exhausted, but still felt the adrenaline pumping through me. That and a ton of caffeine. The instant I got out of the car to check on my brother, my hair began to frizz and stick to my neck. I had pulled the silk ribbon from my pocket to tie my hair back when a rogue breeze kicked in and blew it from my hands. I watched it hover in midair, graceful as a dancer, weightless and free. The black strands swooped in front of me before drifting into the maze of abandoned cars. I hurried after it, my footsteps kicking up clouds of dust as I moved in and out of stacks of twisted metal. I took in a deep breath. The smell of rust, rubber, and oil filled my lungs. But there was something deeper underneath, something infinitely more appealing. Dark, fertile earth, sandalwood, fresh rain, strawberries, and a hint of tang. I maneuvered around a column of hubcaps, following the ribbon as it plummeted like an arrow into the waiting hands of the man standing before me. He wasn't really a man, maybe about 18 or 19. But he was the kind of beautiful that made me think I might still be hallucinating. Does this belong to you? He held out his hand, the ends of the ribbon curled around his wrist like a sacred caress. He had gorgeous olive skin and refined features, with thick, almost black hair that grazed his shoulders. It curled slightly on its ends in a sexy, haphazard way. His almond-shaped eyes were so clear, so full of light, that it was impossible to tell exactly what color they were. Blue, green, and brown, flecks set adrift in a sea of gold. I reached out, taking the ribbon from him, my fingers lingering on his. I waited for the usual wave of repulsion to hit me, but instead my pulse quickened as if I were standing on the edge of a precipice. A dizzying flash of heat rushed to my cheeks. This was something new. Whatever was happening must be a physical function of sleep deprivation or some kind of residual conduit feeling. Still, the urge to feel more of his skin overwhelmed me. Do I know you? He asked, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe from a fashion magazine or something. At first I thought he was trying to be slick, but there was something distinctly genuine about him. You read a lot of fashion magazines? I asked, as I tied my hair back from the ribbon. No, I guess not, he said. He started to step away from me. I actually prayed to any god that would listen to make him stay. I'd never felt such a strong physical attraction to anyone. Even if it was just for a fleeting moment, he seemed to make all my problems disappear. I wanted to bottle that feeling and carry it around in my pocket. The thought of kidnapping him crossed my mind. He smiled back at me. Are you looking for something, a particular part? He had an amazing mouth, perfect lips with a tiny dimple in the right side of his cheek. Not exactly. I flashed a grin as I walked through a labyrinth of stacked tires. You join me? Are you just passing through then? You could say that. I stole another glance at him as I pretended to inspect the treads. He cocked his head to the side, studying me. This place is pretty far off the beaten path. Are you lost? I don't think so. He bit down gently on his bottom lip. I couldn't I could tell he wasn't completely satisfied with my answer. I followed his gaze to my attire. I must have looked pretty psycho in my school uniform skirt, dusty motorcycle boots, and a blood-stained blouse. Oh, it's not my blood, I said with a nervous laugh. He looked at me quizzically. I was giggling at blood. What the hell was wrong with me? There was a deer, I tried to explain, but I was only making things worse. The deer's fine. I mean, he got right up and hopped off into the woods. Happy as a clam. Oh my god, Ash. Shut up. So, I guess you know a lot about cars, I asked, desperately trying to change the subject. A little. I swore I saw him blush. Just from the manuals. You don't look like the typical junkyard worker type. I guess I left my undershirt overalls at home today. That's what you were expecting? No, I replied sheepishly as I registered his worn linen shirt and pants. But I didn't expect you to have all your teeth. He let out a warm, unselfconscious laugh. Standing just a handful of inches above me at about 6 feet. He had surprisingly good posture, which made him seem taller. It was clear, even though his clothes, even through his clothes, that he had a well-toned body. Not overly muscular, but athletic, maybe soccer or swimming, a sport that demanded a strong core. Everything seemed effortless for him. The way he moved, the way he spoke. It's too bad you can't stick around. I could show you the sights, he said, stepping closer. There are sights, I teased as I turned down a narrow pathway with orphan vendors. Sure, he smiled broadly as he followed close behind. The sunflower field at sunset, maybe we could split a bottle of dandelion wine. I looked down at the ground, attempting to hide my idiotic grin. Then I could take you to Windy Point to watch for shooting stars. Would we make a wish? I glanced at him over my shoulder. You can if you like, but I don't need to. He offered that smile again with a tiny dimple. Sounds like you've thought this through. It's not over yet. He grabbed my waist, stopping me in my tracks. My pulse pounded beneath his touch. He dragged his thumb across the top of my hip bone, and my stomach lurched as if the ground were caving in, sending me into a freefall. At dawn, we could take a swim at Crystal Pond. And then what? I managed to ask. He pulled me close, whispering in my ear, You'd never want to leave. I felt giddy. He removed my sunglasses. I thought he was going to kiss me when he suddenly dropped his hands. What's your name? He asked, as he took a deliberate step away from me. His eyes narrowed into slits. Ashlyn. Surname? He interrupted tersely. My mind went blank. What was my name? Larkin, I answered, breathlessly, still reeling from his touch. His eyes went wide before his face turned into a solid block of ice. The muscles in his jaw and shoulders tensed. It's you, he murmured as he slowly backed away from me, then took off, running into the corn.